So we're going to take an opportunity to introduce our distinguished guest. And we're going to have each person go around the horn and just talk about who they are, what they do, what's their passion, and why would you be involved with Interstellar Dreams. I'm going to start with Che Bolden.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm so glad and happy to be here. Honored to be associated with Interstellar Dreams. My name is Che Bolden. I am the president and CEO of the Charles F. Bolden Group. And I'm super proud to be associated with that for two reasons. One, it bears my father's namesake. He started the company. But two, our number one objective is to enhance and promote new leadership archetypes, especially in the context of what Robin was talking about, archetypes for the future revolve around the business of space. I think very few people actually take the time to think about how impactful space has been on humanity and how much more impactful it will be as we move forward. And so our number one objective is to build that community. And once again, I'm excited to be here and to facilitate this conversation because we're going to talk about how to build that community as fast or as expeditiously as we possibly can. And just so everyone understands, I'm actually sitting at a college soccer game. So we'll be muting myself or going off screen every so often to cheer. But I am paying attention to this more than anything.
The football did come in, Carl.
That's great. Thank you so much. I'd also like to introduce you to Melanie Yashar. She is just cutting edge. Melanie, introduce yourself and tell us about the wonderful things you're involved in.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Melody Ashar. I'm the Vice President of Building Design and Performance at Icon. At Icon, we create large-scale 3D printing technologies for both Earth and space. So we have a robust residential practice where we are introducing 3D printing at scale to create homes at price points for communities that need it most, including formerly homeless individuals. And we're developing that same technology with some different materials that we're engineering to 3D print large-scale infrastructure on the surface of the moon. And we're very excited to be working in collaboration with NASA to deliver a first prototype of a 3D printing additive manufacturing system by 2026 to create small structures on the moon using local and indigenous materials. I'm really excited to be here. Robin has been a tremendous advocate for my practice in space exploration architecture, as well as for, I would say, women-led aerospace startups and founders. And I'm a big supporter of introducing educational as well as internship opportunities to young professionals as well as students. Those are things that I didn't have within my reach and within my grasp when I was in university or prior. And so I'm very supportive of the network here at Interstellar Dreams, as well as those who are interested in pursuing aerospace, but don't really quite know what the point of entry is going to be or how their career might turn out or how it might evolve. I'm somebody with a very different career path. I came from an alternative discipline and found my way into aerospace and realized that there's definitely room for all, especially those who come from non-traditional engineering backgrounds. So thank you so much. It's wonderful to meet you all. I'd be happy to stay in touch. Unfortunately, I do have a meeting conflict at this particular hour, so I'm going to have to sign off, but definitely reach out to me and I would be happy to continue this conversation elsewhere.
Thank you so much, Melanie. We are so pleased that you were able to share your time with us today. You know, Melanie talks about the various pathways. This so resonated with me, Interstellar Dreams, and the communities we serve, because very often we serve under-resourced communities. And I got a chance to meet a fabulous team of people, Carl Woolley and Amy Smith, that will speak directly to that. I'll start with Carl, and Carl, if you can introduce Amy, that'd be great.
Yes, thank you, Robin, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us. So, my name's Carl Woolley. I'm the global head of immersive at Framestore. Framestore is a visual effects company based in London. Headquarters are in London. We have offices all over the US, couple in Asia and in the Southern Hemisphere too. We're almost 40 years old. And for those 4 decades, we've been producing visual effects for Hollywood feature films and TV and all the streaming platforms. Most notably, I guess, we've worked on a lot of the Marvel franchise. So there's a heavy amount of science fiction that we get involved in, but also one of our biggest films that hopefully some of you be familiar with is Gravity, which is just 10 years old this past couple of weeks, which despite being fictional, was recognized as being, quite highly accurate in terms of how how space was portrayed. And, as I said, we're for nearly 40 years old, and I've been here nearly 20 years, been running this immersive team for the past decade, and we're responsible for the non-traditional aspects of entertainment, really, and so we work on things like theme park rides and VR simulations and AR apps and digital platforms, and that's how I came to meet Robin and her team. Was inspired by what they're trying to achieve, and there was a lot of synergies between Robin's ambitions and our own at Framestore. We have around 3,000 employees within Framestore. Then within the group of companies which we are a part of, there's about 5,000 to 6,000. I think you'd be quite surprised how similar some of the skill sets are, and that's why outreach, learning, education, and how we train people internally as well as externally is important to our business. And to that end, I can introduce Amy Smith. Amy's been with the company slightly longer than me, and I only know this because she hired me, and she's now our global director of recruitment and outreach at Framestore. So I'll let Amy tell you a bit about what she does.
Thank you, Carl. He always blames me for hiring him. I feel like it's his get out of jail free card. If you don't like me, it's Amy's fault. So yes, as Carl said, I'm the global director of recruitment and outreach for Framestore, and the fact that outreach is in my title is sort of an indication of, as Carl said, how seriously we take that at Framestore. I think some of the problems you were describing, Robin, about underrepresented communities not seeing themselves in the aerospace industry is very much true of our industry too. I think a lot of people enjoy Marvel films at the cinema, but don't think that they could ever actually be involved in making one. And so outreach is absolutely vital for us. And also, much like the future roles you were describing in aerospace, our roles are also what we would call STEAM rather than STEM roles. So that combination of art with science, technology, engineering, and maths. And I don't think, I think our education systems all around the world, not just in the US, but all around the world, encourage young people to think of themselves as either an arts major or a science major, and not to consider that actually they combine those skill sets and that design thinking can be brought into the science and technology world. And that's hugely important to us at Framestore. We have almost every qualification that there is represented in our staff at Framestore, from software engineering at one end of the scale to fine art at the other end of the scale, and absolutely everything in between. And we have even, as I said to you the other day, employed a NASA rocket scientist in our past as well, even though we work in entertainment. So it's very much that range of skill sets that you spoke about. And if you don't mind, just because I feel Framestore is probably a brand that the audience are not familiar with, I've just got a short 1-minute video that introduces us through our people, and actually gives you some examples of some of the things we've worked on as well, because I think people will be surprised at the variety of things that we've worked on. So if that's okay, I'll just play that quickly. Hopefully it'll play back okay, and we don't get too much lagging.
Framestore is a creative studio, but what does that mean? We do movie magic.
We're storytellers, creators, innovators.
Framestore creates dreams.
We make things blow up. We make furry creatures talk and dance.
We work on a lot of the blockbuster films that you see in cinemas these days, The Avengers, James Bond, Paddington.
We do rides, AR, VR. If it's creative and it involves technology, Framestore do it.
Framestore is a house of world-class creatives and technologists with a common goal of creating stunning visuals.
Framestore to me is all about the people. It's this incredible mix of problem solvers that all come together and tell amazing stories.
We've got offices everywhere. New York, LA, Chicago, Vancouver, Montreal,
London, Melbourne, and Mumbai.
I'm most impressed with the kind of people that Framestore has acquired.
Problem solvers, artists, mathematicians.
They're curious, they go above and beyond.
Creative, tenacious.
Dedication, passion for the craft.
Talented and also skillful.
Everyone is very respectful to each other.
Everyone's very different.
They are chill and fun and friendly, but they are professional as well.
It's the passion of the people that give Framestore its strength.
We enjoy what we're doing, we're enthusiastic about what we're doing, and I think that is why people come to us.
Framestore is very inclusive. You can come from any walk of life, from any background, you'll always be welcomed here.
There's a misconception that everyone in visual effects is by themselves at their computer, and it's the complete opposite. You're always working with other people.
You always have someone to lean on, to go to for direction, and to get the support that you want and need.
I feel that I can explore and I can try and find out what my passions are.
I feel like I can reach my potential, and I'm being given the guidance and the platform to do that.
The job I'm doing now is the kind of job I've always wanted to do as a kid, but didn't really think it was possible.
It's amazing to be a part of this, especially not knowing anything about this industry beforehand and falling so deeply in love with it that I want it to be my forever career.
To be able to build a career in a place where you feel like you can be accepted and you can be comfortable and you can look to the future and think, okay, this is somewhere where I'd like to be and this is somewhere I'd like to stay. I find that inspiring.
Wow.
Thank you for indulging me.
That's fantastic. And I think I just discovered one of my favorite shows is Wheel of Time and Foundation. And I think you all did that as well. And I didn't see Barbie in there, but I know you guys did Barbie as well.
We did.
And you're an Academy Award-winning organization, yes?
Yes, we
and
have
back
three, yes.
Great. One of the things that I know we will talk about later as Che leads our conversation today is that how would you connect aerospace to this career? And I know you've got good information to share shortly. Before we do that, I want to throw to Alejandra and introduce yourself. Tell us why you're here. What would Pinnacle Financial have anything to do with careers in aerospace?
Can't hear you, Alejandra. No. Yeah, there we go.
Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
You can hear me? Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So first off, I just wanted to say I am so impressed by everyone here, and I feel honored to be part of the mix. My name is Alejandra Villanueva. I am the lead financial literacy. I'm the lead for the financial literacy program for Pinnacle Financial Partners. My bet is that that is probably a new name for most of you. Our firm was born in Nashville, Tennessee, 23 years ago, actually this week. We are a founder-led firm with over $50 billion in assets. We are a challenger brand with one of the top performing banking stocks in the country. The reason you may not have heard of us is because we're the new kids in town. We entered the greater Washington region in 2021. As of today, our team is over 1 billion strong in deposits and 750 billion in lending commitments. A key part of our rapid growth and success in Greater Washington has been to our expertise in GovCon and the aerospace industry. Today, I'm excited to be here and joining this conversation. One of my favorite pinnacle values is learning, and I personally believe that financial education will be a key component in leveling the playing field for the kids in our community to be able to reach the stars, the moon, and beyond.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. We do have Sandra Kaufman that will be joining us shortly. She is a Deputy Director of Astrophysics. She's out there counting new Earth-like planets. So she's just going to be a little bit late. There's lots going on in that arena. And she said, Robin, hold it down. I am coming. So we know that she'll be here shortly. And before we do that, I want to just throw to my friend Kevin, and he'll tell a little bit about himself, and then we'll get started.
Sure. So I'm the Director of Business Development with Analytic Marketing. Also, I just am the outgoing Chairman of the Board for the Greater Reston Chamber of Commerce. And again, we could not be happier supporting Robin and her amazing mission. I personally have embraced this, and I want to see Robin be as successful as possible. So happy to be on her advisory board. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And absolutely everybody that's joined us today are all part of the advisory board. Amy is our guest, and so is Alejandra, but everybody else that you'll meet today is part of the advisory board, which means they guide our every step and helping us expand our mission, which is to reach 1 million youth to tell the story. We need you, especially women. We need you. So thank you, everybody. I'm now ready to get us started. We want to be able to spend as much time as possible having you all learn about how do you get this next generation ready for the future of aerospace, and what better person to lead that is a space entrepreneur, and space is in his blood. And he's got the inside scoop on what it's like to be a space entrepreneur. Let me also say that it's going to spark questions. So you have opportunities to put questions in our chat, right, Kevin?
Not the chat, but the Q&A tab.
Thank you, Kevin. And we'll be monitoring them, making sure that we can answer all the questions. And the product at the end are two things. One, this recorded video, which we want you and everyone else to share for anybody that missed it. And number two, we will have a list, and I think we're going to hear first here some internships that you can share with other people. And so we will be following up with more and more curated opportunities for the next generation. So I'm going to turn it over to my friend Jay Bolden, and he's going to take it from here.
Thank you, Robin. And everyone, again, reiterate how happy I am to be here. And just so everyone knows, my team is up 2-0, so I'm super excited. And so I'll bring that enthusiasm to this. Carl, it is football in the world sense. They are, 11v11, and it's beautiful. Some things that I heard from some of the introductions, I'm going to exercise a little bit of latitude that the moderator has to tell you. This is a quick story. So the Bolden Group, as I kind of alluded to earlier, is focused on leadership. However, we came into this sector, if you will, intentionally, not just because of the background that we share, both familially as well as our advisory group, but because of some of the experiences we've had recently. And one of the most profound experiences, we got pulled into an event, part of Israeli Space Week a couple of years ago, where the Ramon Foundation, which was founded by a woman named Rona Ramon in honor of her husband Elon, who perished on Columbia. He was the first Israeli astronaut. They wanted to set a new tone on what Israeli space tech was about, and they asked us to curate, two keynotes, an opening and closing keynote. And they originally wanted to go after the Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Richard Branson's of the world. We thought, based on experience, based on people we knew, that there was a better option to go with. And so we then turned and we asked the likes, true titans of industry, Gwen Shotwell from SpaceX, Ellen Stoffen from the Smithsonian, and Her Excellency Sarah El Amiri from UAE. They were the members of the panel that we had, and that just blew everybody away. And the most profound component of that was they demonstrated that space is not what we used to think space was. First off, back in the day, you wouldn't look and see three incredible human beings that happened to be women leading the effort like they are. And it's amazing. I know there's another person on this call right now who can carry that title as well through her history with the space industry. But individuals like that have blazed a path that, quite frankly, is blowing the doors open. And so that was how we got into this, was we realized that there was a different conversation to be had. The second thing I want to do, enlighten everyone with before we start getting into the questions, is our efforts. While I grew up in the shadow of shuttle, I didn't know a lot about what was going on with respect to how space was evolving. Back then, unless you were a test pilot, you couldn't become an astronaut. Unless you were an engineer, you couldn't become a flight director. And that was what everybody knew for space. But as we've highlighted earlier, and as Robin's organization and Interstellar Dreams is promoting, is that the jobs that are coming that are related to the business of space are just like the jobs that contribute to any other economy around the globe, if you will. And so I want everybody to take that into consideration and think about that a couple of long, hard seconds about that. Lastly, one of the efforts that we'd have, and Robin has blessed us with her presence in this, is we've got a retreat that we run, which is a not for attribution gathering. We talk about everything outside of traditional space. When I say traditional space, I'm talking about rockets, satellites, human space flight, and multiplanetary exploration. But as we are uncovering here, there are so many more things to the business of space that, as we got into the discussion last year, we walked away with 4 areas that need to be addressed. And one of them is what we're going to talk about here today. But the first was governance. How are the decisions about space being made? The second is access. Who is in the room to make those decisions? Who are we allowing to be part of the solution? The third one, and this is where this conversation comes in, is education. Are we creating a workforce that's going to succeed in the future? And what we were talking about, the business of space. And the last one, which applies to Framestore, and it's my personal favorite, is narrative. Are we telling the story of space in a language in which everyone is ready to receive it? That is not an idiomatic, that is not a linguistic discussion. That is are we connecting from people to people on a human level so they can understand the significance of what space is and what it means for them? The last thing I'll say is, take a page from the climate folks. They jacked it up. They told everybody we had to save the planet. Well, the reality of it is the planet will save itself. We'll be the ones who pay the price for that. We just won't exist. So we don't have to go to space because we're a spacefaring species. We need to go to space because it's best for humankind. What are we going to do, and how are we going to leverage the space-based technologies, advancements, and learnings that we have to make life for human beings on planet Earth that much better? And so with that, I'm going to ask my very first question of the panel. It's for anyone to answer. When you think about the skills and the talents that we value in today's workforce, which is a hybrid workforce, a digital and a real workforce, what are those skills that you all are looking for in order to be successful, for someone to get their foot in the door, and then to be successful at what they do? Let's go with you first, Amy.
Knew you were going to do that. So I actually think, in our experience, the skills we're actually looking for are not what have traditionally been called hard skills, or the technical skills, if you like, because actually in a lot of jobs, the hard and technical skills we can build on with someone. If they come with a basic understanding of a piece of software or maths or whatever, we can build on those skills with them. The skills that I think are really important for young people to be developing are actually the interpersonal skills, their ability to communicate, their ability to work effectively as part of a team. Really crucially, their ability to take constructive feedback and respond to that in a positive way, and be able to take that feedback in order to, to Alejandra's point, to improve and to learn and to grow. I think sometimes there's such a focus on young people must know maths to this grade, and they must know English to this grade, and they must know this, and actually all the sort of interpersonal skills get forgotten, and they are so important, I think, to every industry and to being successful in your career over the long term, rather than just in the first job that you walk into. So I would say, from my perspective, let's not forget those interpersonal skills when we're helping young people understand what they will need to get that first step in the door.
That's exceptional. Alejandra, you're coming at this from a slightly different angle. Obviously Amy and Carl are in the arts and entertainment world that branches out and touches other things, but in the finance world, what are you all looking for, and how do you think that will make a difference as we enter this new era of space exploration and business of space?
Yeah, so to follow with what Amy is saying, we are looking for things that you can't teach, right? We're looking for problem solvers. people who are, they're not going to give up just because the current solution doesn't exist. We were looking for creativity, for drive and grit.
Sorry, another goal, a lot of scoring, a lot of noise in the background. And because we're talking about football, Carl, you get to answer next. You know, maybe you can thread the needle between what Alejandra said and what Amy said. Actually, let me frame the question just a little bit, because as I mentioned earlier, it used to be a test pilot to astronaut, engineer to flight director. Where do we evaluate these intangibles that Alejandra and Amy were talking about? What mechanisms do you think, Paul, that we have in place, or what mechanisms do we need to put in place that we can start to evaluate those intangibles and find the right people for this business?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I only wish I had a way to thread the needle between football and those two questions. Then I'd be really happy with my response, but I don't. I think Amy's absolutely right, Alejandra too, that the hard skills you can teach or people can teach themselves. I think what's currently harder for young people to do compared to perhaps when I entered the industry in a hybrid situation is, how do you evaluate those soft skills and teach those soft skills and nurture them when people are remote in their bedroom, their dorm room, or at home? So one of the things we foster generally within the business is we try to encourage people to return to the office, not for the benefit of the business or because we've got, 100,000 square foot building that we're paying to service 7 days a week and we want to fill it. That's genuinely not the reason. The reason is because we consider the kind of the welfare and the nurturing of our younger talent and the people above the technology. And anyone in the business will tell you that and attest to that. We work with some amazing technology. The space industry works with the most advanced and incredible technology, but none of it's really any use without a human somewhere as a part of it. And I'm sure we'll get on to artificial intelligence at some point. Even with artificial intelligence, if you're trying to create art, you still need a human involved at some point. Anyway, so to answer your question, what we do to combat that is, and Amy will give more details, but we do a lot to encourage people to come into the offices so that the senior people can be around the junior ones and sort of teach them those soft skills and how to handle different client situations, how to respond to feedback. If you've got students that have come out of the pandemic and are used to having completed their learning online, and then they join the workplace online and they're not used to face-to-face critique or conflict, how do they handle that? It's emotionally quite difficult to be told perhaps something's not good enough. That's quite difficult to handle, especially when most young artists that we deal with, they don't have their cameras on. They're not used to, it's very hard to read that body language remotely compared to in person. So we encourage that. And Amy and her team do a really good job of going to universities, going to schools, getting people within Framestore to go back to perhaps colleges that they went to speak, to kind of to do that outreach. And we have several programs, which I'm sure Amy will get onto, around apprenticeships and internships and the value of those. And as Amy says, the hard skills, although they feel insurmountable when you're learning them for the first time, that's easy, relatively speaking, to teach. The hard thing is the interpersonal skills.
Yeah, I think, somewhere in there is an analogy with total football, but I digress. We'll figure that out later, and how total football itself works. To close out this round of question, I'm gonna help Kevin. You're gonna help us finish this up. You're coming from government, and when I say government, I mean at the local level. As I grew up, it was very well known that Houston, Texas, and Orlando, Florida, or more importantly, Cocoa Beach, Florida, Huntsville, Alabama, those were known as space towns. As the business of space starts to become more ubiquitous or prolific, more and more municipalities, both from the local level all the way to the state level, are going to have to, and governments as well, we're going to have to start thinking about what does it mean to have the business of space as a significant part of their economy. You, as having been on the resting in the resting government, could you talk to us a little bit about how this digital workforce, how cities are adapting to that, and how we could possibly bring this into the discussion around the business of space?
Sure. So it's actually the Chamber of Commerce. So it's not necessarily the government that I'm a part of, but the Chamber of Commerce embraces small, medium, and large companies and how they work together. We encourage collaboration. We encourage, all of them to get involved and support the local businesses, the local nonprofits. So it's not necessarily government, but I can tell you that the Dulles Corridor here in Virginia is known as Silicon Valley of the East. And the innovation that's happening, the opportunities that are here, Robin could not be in a better place to try to connect those that need to know that they're needed with the opportunities that are here. And as you'll hear from Robin, we want to take this across the country. We want to find pockets where there's this overlap of government, industry, and the private sector. And, you don't have to look much further than I think your father pointed out. Let's go see where Space Force was trying to put their headquarters across the country. And you'll find exactly that same mix of all the things that are going to make this even more successful.
And so I'll use that as kind of a segue back to you, Carl. Within every locality that's gonna play a role in the business space as we move forward, there are existing jobs and job opportunities. You all have a concept around the whole pre-work career. Could you talk a little bit about that, how maybe folks from different parts of the country and parts of the globe might be able to take these pre-work career opportunities to create internships and to create opportunities for young or transitioning individuals to get into the business space?
Yeah, that's again another excellent question. I think, but before those kind of pre-work programs come into effect, or those readiness programs to prepare young persons and young adults for internships, is how do people find out about those opportunities? How do we market those opportunities, and how do we reach those audiences so that children feel ready and feel, I think, I've got 3 children myself, a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And I think, and Amy knows this, I've spoken to Amy about this before, I think that young people feel these opportunities are out of reach, either because they're too focused on the hard skills, or they see, AAA video games and things like, the big glossy, expensive, hard to reach. They see space and they feel those, and Hollywood films, they feel those opportunities are unachievable. So the very first hurdle, I think, for them is, how do we make them realize that anyone can do this? Like, if we're all doing this, panelists here and people kind of remotely joining, we all have careers, we've all got here somehow. It's all doable because someone's doing it. So I think the first step, Che, to answer your question, before the pre-work readiness programs, is how do we make sure young people know those are available? And that's why we would do things like this. And that's why, we visit old colleges and, like we're advertising at the moment for a few jobs that are kind of related to the sort of the newer technologies that we use at Framestore within my team. And we've seen hundreds and hundreds of applications. And because this is important, we will check every single one. We will review every single one because, we know people kind of work hard and try hard to enter the sector. But I think that the challenge is, how do we make sure people know we want them to work in these industries, right? We want them to be ready to work. We're not gatekeeping all the cool stuff from the kids. We want them to come and work here. But I think sometimes it's like, we used to make a video game. I can get that off of TikTok in seconds. Like, there's instant gratification for young adults. Information is almost too easily accessible. So there's lots of challenges, and I think it's our job at our various stages in our careers and experience in various industries to encourage young persons. So the pre-work readiness programs are fantastic because they do teach some of those soft skills, like how do you handle an interview, and what do you do in a group setting, like all those sorts of things, I think, are valuable, of course. But they're only good if people use them, and people won't use them if they don't know about them. So I think that's the challenge, really.
Yeah. So, Alejandra, this is opining from me for Che. There are 3 main constituents as we move forward in this new business. We've talked a little bit about the folks that are going to kind of make the biggest difference. And those are the new entrants, the people with new ideas that are looking at space with a fresh perspective. We also talked about the third case in what I consider, and those are the narrators, the influencers, the people that are going to get people interested. But in our assessment, the other key vertical, third pillar, is in the finance sector. How do you all at Pinnacle, how are you looking at getting a hold of either new entrants into the market or people who are transitioning from somewhere else? What type of financial literacy opportunities are there pre-work that they can get into? And what exactly, like maybe what are you at Pinnacle doing to encourage internships and the like?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I lead the financial literacy program for us, and we have a lot of different programs. One is on the consumer sector, one is on the small business, and we also have currently in the works a program for the youth. So when it comes to all of our programs, the first thing that we address is the money mindset, the behaviors behind why we have all these statistics that we're all familiar with the statistics of a lot of people not having, $1,000 in a savings account, or how 70% of millennials are under a lot of stress due to their debt. We all are familiar with all these statistics, but the first thing we want to teach through our programs is to evaluate the psychology behind why that is happening. Because once you address that, then you will see that trickle down into all areas of the person's lives, including their careers. They'll be able to feel more of a freedom to explore their dreams if they actually feel stable in their finances.
Great, thank you. So Robin, I'm actually going to pick on you for a second, even though you're not formally a panelist. Can you describe to our participants some of the ways that Interstellar Dreams are leveraging technology and emerging frontier technologies to enhance the experience there? And then that will help me pivot into going back to the Framestore team and talk to them about what they have to offer. What are you all using at Interstellar Dreams in partnership with George Mason?
I'm glad you asked that question, because at George Mason University, they were kind enough to embrace our program and provide us a platform, literally real estate, a place for us to create a simulated experiential environment we call it Micro Center. In this case, we have a design for 3 micro centers, and one of the micro centers is mission control. As a matter of fact, we tried to visually set it up like mission control with a huge screen in the front. Kevin and I visited in the last year or so another company called Intelsat, and it had a 3-story room where all the commanders, flight directors, whatever that they were called there. And again, it's the same setup, the desks, screens, data, monitoring satellites in real time, and this giant screen in the front. We recently took our interns to Northrop Grumman, and they took us to a private mission control type situation where they were monitoring a particular mission where they were resupplying the space station. And again, it was these desks and computers and the giant screen in the middle with lots of data. But one of the things that's important is, thank you, Kevin, that was excellent. So this is actually on our website. We took a picture of, this is a daytime picture. And so what you see here is an example of 2 things: the curriculum that is real time, present curriculum, meaning what is going on in the space industry today and what do we anticipate. And a lot of it has to do with satellites. And the other thing is, how do we integrate these skills that Amy and Alejandra and Carl were alluding to, which are these skills. They use the term soft skills, but I use the term critical thinking skills. And so those critical thinking skills, I think, have risen to the top almost as urgent. I don't even see them as soft. I see them as, you need to walk in the door. I'm going to use the word briefcase because that was so old school, but a toolkit or briefcase worth of valuable behaviors that we call design thinking, collaborative leadership, communicating lofty goals, precision and accuracy, and the ability to persist in the face of adversity and ambiguity. And we feel that these programs that we offer, as Kevin is showing you now, they live on this screen, but they interact. Notice there are 6 of them, and these represent navigation, communication, SATCOM, and depend on, and including the entrepreneur, because we know for sure, I think Amy mentioned it earlier, and Che, you can expound on this, that you have a mixture of commercial, business, space people who build the satellites sitting next to scientists, engineers, navigators. They're all working on the project together. And ultimately, there will be a problem once you enter that off-planet arena. So how do you solve the problem? Clearly, you have to plan in advance, but you do know something's going to happen. And just like this team today, everybody brings to the table their diverse thinking, diverse skills, and sometimes what they call it divergent thinking. And divergent thinking is just a different way of looking at the same thing. It's that person that turns it upside down and say, well, what about looking at it like that? If I'm in that arena as an engineer, I might be locked into a particular way of looking at something. But if I come to the table as a graphic designer, I might say, I see a nexus. And maybe we can do this, that, or the other. And so we create curriculum that integrates 6 critical thinking components, kind of those behaviors that we talked about today. And we feel like that's our secret sauce. That's what makes us unique. I do have a master's degree in that, to say that what I've done is taken the time to research and learn critical steps that let you know you are doing design thinking, you are doing critical thinking, and not willy-nilly saying, I'm thinking critically right now. And so what we've learned is that, how do you know? How can you prove it? How do you measure your critical thinking? And we actually embed those steps to critical thinking for the sole purpose of making it the next generation's toolkit, talent toolkit. So we want them to apply for internships and jobs for you guys, but they're going to bring with them critical thinking skills in hopes that they encounter problems. And I think you told us, Che, that space presents problems we don't even know about yet.
Yeah, so this is a good, so one of the things, I'm glad, Kevin, you pulled up the video, or sorry, the image of the command center, because it brings me to the one issue that we haven't really hit on yet. We've talked about financial literacy just as a general foundational principle that everybody's going to need to survive. However, a lot of the tools that Interstellar Dreams are using and the internships that Framestore might offer for people to do, and anyone else on this call that's looking at internship, one of the areas that we're going to rely upon this next generation, they're natives to this. We're all immigrants, but digital literacy is an area that they need to have probably a skill that they've mastered early on. And so to that, Carl, Framestore itself, as we've already highlighted, is an award-winning organization, company that uses technology to enhance the user experience. How do you think that visual effects, animation, and the like, play into any potential internships that some of the people on this call might be looking at to, or anyone else that we might talk to, and how does that influence the growth of the future as we talk about the business of space?
Okay. I'm just putting my notifications on mute because I've got clients in North America that are pinging me. I don't want them to disturb you. So I think this is my belief, right? So not necessarily going to be shared by everyone. I think, like skills in 3D are really important for the future industries and current ones too. So that means things like maths, physics are important, but particularly kind of the skills that we teach people, as well as what I'm now going to refer to as critical thinking skills. I'm definitely not going to call them soft skills again, because I'm quite terrified by Robin, to be honest. So they're critical thinking skills from now on. is if you think about kind of how we understand the world and we see the world, like we think and see and feel in 3D, yet most of what we're used to being portrayed is in 2D. Visual effects artists, they think in 3D, like just this how they're wired different. And I guess that's another one that I would say is a soft skill. It's not a technical skill. It's just the way you become conditioned to think in 3D space, right? So as these new platforms become more critical, whether that's remote working, remote learning, whether that's with AR or VR or remote missions on Mars, and you're controlling kind of robotics and you've got a headset on and haptics and things, understanding how to design and build for 3D space, I think is really critical. And so to be able to understand and build for 3D, you need to know really kind of maths and physics, as well as kind of having what we call the eye, which is like an artistic and creative intent. So whether you are building for 3D or not, maths and physics, I think, translate off, I would say quite well to kind of the industries that you guys are more familiar with, but also generally speaking, like I met and ended up working on a project with someone from NASA, and I met them at South by Southwest because we were talking about 3D design and use of Unreal Engine. And off the back of that, I went to go and visit them at JPL, and I saw some of their mock-ups that they were doing in 3D and Unreal Engine. This was 5, 6, 7 years ago. So I know that there is already training in that field, and there's a shortage of those skills. So kids, young persons, young adults play 3D video games, but they don't necessarily know how to build them and stuff. So I think those skills are highly transferable, and we often can't find those fast enough. So selfishly, I'm going to say that is my answer.
All right, so we're going to get to the meat of it now, and I'm going to ask a series of questions together for both Amy and Alejandra. And so it's a 3-part question. The first one is, what type of internships, apprenticeships, or trainee programs do you recommend in your line of work? The second is, what would you suggest that internship candidates do prior to submitting their application? And then specific to Amy, because you all have a program that's opening up here pretty soon, when does the application schedule begin, and how should candidates apply? So you all can choose who goes first, but that's for both of you, since you represent two verticals within this discussion.
You go first, Alejandra.
Okay, I'll go ahead. So as we're talking about this conversation of building the pipeline, right, for the future, I know the conversation is about internships, but an additional part of this is financial education. And the way I see this is financial education will address both the lack of belief and the lack of access in the community. A child's biggest influence in their personal financial habits is their parents and the household that they grew up in. As we're talking about building the pipeline for the future for the aerospace industry, the children that we're speaking of today are the children of millennials and Gen Z generations, two of the most financially stressed out generations we have ever seen. So financial insecurity, in my opinion, is a huge inhibitor to goal setting and self-efficacy and dreaming. Financial literacy programs are how we address those insecurities and replace them with empowerment. A child that's knowledgeable and feels secure in their abilities to manage their finances is a child who can believe and dream of a career in space. Regarding lack of access, while internships are a critical first part of growing the space community, to succeed in aerospace, you must also become the best of the best in your chosen field, while passion, creativity, and the other critical thinking skills that we've talked about today are components of the equation. We can't leave out the advanced technical skills that Carl was just mentioning, and the high cost of education. So again, the earlier we can introduce a financial literacy program into a child's life, I think the better chance that child and their family will have in being able to afford their dream of having this career.
Great, Amy?
I'm glad that I let Alejandra go first, because that segues really nicely onto our approach actually to bringing in talent to our industry, which I think also speaks to what Robin was saying about the work readiness programs that you're running. So we recognize at Framestore that our jobs do require, to your point and to Carl's point, higher technical skills in terms of softwares that people need to be able to use and maths and physics that they need to be able to apply to their jobs. But we also recognize that not everyone in this world is in a position to be able to go to university, to be able to go to college, either financially or because of family situations or other responsibilities in their life. And so as a result, we've designed a series of programs at Framestore that allow people to enter the industry at the level at which they're at and at the level at which makes sense for them. So we have a three-tiered program, and the earliest entry point is what we call our apprenticeship program, and we have that in the US as well. I know apprenticeships are becoming increasingly popular in the US as they are elsewhere in the world. And apprenticeships are designed for high school leavers. So someone who's not in a position to do anything beyond that, or actually maybe sort of formal education and that classroom setting and all of that just doesn't work for them. Maybe, you know, talking about divergent thinking, maybe that's just not how their brain functions at its best, is in that setting. They function much better in the real world and actually in the workplace. So an apprenticeship is taking someone who has almost no training in the field and training them up on the job through mentorship and coaching and support, and supporting their learning in the workplace, and paying them at the same time, to your point, Alejandra, and not putting them in a huge amount of debt by going through sort of more formal education, but actually paying them to learn on the job. The next program is our internship program, which is obviously what we're here to talk about today. And our internship program is aimed at either current undergraduates or very recent graduates. It's 3 months in duration, and the whole point is to give somebody the opportunity to work on a real live project, because universities are amazing and they can teach you a huge amount, but what they cannot do is actually give you real world experience. They can simulate it, but they can't give you real world experience. And that's the advantage of an internship. Again, it's paid. Of course, it's paid, because we want people to be able to take up these opportunities and not be disadvantaged. And we offer internships in all the areas of our business, from, you know, again, talking about this range of skills, from the technical side to the artistic side to the project management side, the business side. We have internships in all of those areas. And then the final element of our program is not forgetting people who maybe they have done some study, but they were the kind of person who was like, oh, I'm just going to take whatever job gets offered to me first. And now they've ended up not quite in the job they were, you know, not quite in their dream job, to your point, Alejandra. They've sort of ended up off to the side somehow. And they're like, now I don't know how to get back to my dream job because I've sort of gone off on a tangent. Or maybe, again, in terms of encouraging women into some of these industries, maybe it's someone who's taken a big break from their career to have a family. Or maybe it's someone who's in a different industry and thinks, oh, you know what, actually, I'd love to work in aerospace or visual effects or whatever, but I don't know how to transition from the industry I'm in into that industry. And so all of those sort of categories of people fall into what we call our trainee programs. And our trainee programs are focused on a specific department. So it's like, if you come in and do this trainee program, you will end up in this specific department within our business, and we will give you the skills you need to be successful in that department. Again, we pay people for that learning. So even if at the end of the trainee program, it's not the right opportunity for them after all, they still lost nothing from, thank you very much. It's like Carl who's sharing that. But yes, they still end up at the end of that trainee program with a set of skills that they've developed that they can take elsewhere if that's what they want to do. So yeah, we look to create these different entry points into our business so that we're not cutting opportunity off from anybody, because I think what we're all saying is all of these industries, aerospace, visual effects, etc., we have skill shortages. We want to provide opportunity for people, and so it's about giving them different ways to access that opportunity.
Amazing. So this will be my last question. And so I encourage those of you who have stayed with us, obviously you are intently listening, and you probably have really good questions to ask. So we'll be going to you all very shortly here. I'm going to close out my questions with one for Kevin, as he, has got an aerospace background as well as worked with the Chamber of Commerce. As we were discussing earlier, the business of space is branching beyond the traditional areas. How do you see the growth, and where should we be looking for better internship opportunities, not just within aerospace, but outside of aerospace?
Well, great question. I think Dennis Paul from the Aerospace Corporation said it best when he said it's like the gold rush. Okay. And if we think about the gold rush that happened in this country, everybody went to California to pan for gold. But imagine when you get there, all of the shops are there, and the picks and the pans and all of the stores have already been created. Well, that's what's happening in aerospace. Right now, we know we're going into space. We're going to the moon. The space station that's going to revolve around the moon, called Gateway, is going to be the launch pad to Mars. But he says all this money is being invested in all of the things that we're going to need up there: 3D printing, growing food, all of these skills that are going to be needed, and all these companies that are being formed and money being thrown in. It's created a $1 trillion industry. And I went and did a little bit of research. I saw that in 2016, there was an estimate that for every one person that goes to space, there's 37,000 jobs. That is supposed to grow by 100,000 over the next 10 years. So just think about that for a minute. I mean, how many more jobs? And there's just not enough people. So Robin and the amazing program that she's doing, we need to talk to these kids earlier. We need to let them know what's possible, and that there's a roadmap. And so our next steps are going to be to, get in touch with the educators. We're going to get in touch with the parents and the kids and say, look, before you decide to go to college, look at what's available. Look at what's possible. It can happen for you.
Awesome. Thank you. I don't have access to the Q&A, so whoever does, for those of you that are in the participants list, by all means, either drop it in Q&A or raise your hand, and we'll get to you. While you all do that, I'm going to go back to Robin. Robin, as you've listened to our participants and you've heard all the different opportunities they are looking to create, how can the folks who are on the call get more involved in Interstellar Dreams?
You know what? That's exactly what we want. We're hoping that this will launch the involvement in multiple ways. One, we're looking for volunteers. Two, we are launching a magazine called Interstellar Magazine to share the experiences that everybody on this team has, to let people know what's up new. For example, I think you were sharing with us that the fashion house Prada just started an alliance with NASA to build the next spacesuit. We know Champion, the sports company, is using their materials to work with a space company that's trying to wrap equipment and keeping it warm in space. So we want to be able to share that information. So we're going to need everybody's email, and we want people to share. We're trying to go as viral as possible, and we will want people to participate either virtually, online. And lastly, because this network of people is across the country, let's do things in other states. And let's bring more people to the conversation. I know Carl and Amy and I will be chatting about how we can make sure we can bring programming and opportunities abroad. So that's what we're looking for. And, ideas really are great when they come from the people we're trying to serve. So if anybody here has any questions, any ideas, suggestions, this is the time to get in front of folk and tell them what you think. What do you think? What questions do you have?
Robin, I can see. Oh, go ahead, Che.
No, I was actually going to defer to you and say, if you can see the questions, by all means, just push them out, and then we'll keep talking around them.
Well, I see on the the guest list, we still have folks from the Fairfax County Public Schools. We've got folks from the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. So Robin, what can we tell the school system that's coming down the road? What do you have planned next?
So we are planning to work very closely with experts like Jay, like our physicist folk, to find out how we can get our critical thinking alignment in the school system's curriculum. So we will be doing some curriculum design. We also worked with another university with the help of Framestore, where we brought some interns together, where Carl was able to explain, there's a benefit to gaming. How could gaming be used to teach? Would it make a difference for engagement? To be quite honest, aerospace is not easy. You got to want to do it. And, just want to do it doesn't get it done. It's not easy, but we'd be willing to hang in there with some persistence behaviors if it's fun. So maybe we need to make more video games. What do you think, Carl?
More video. Yeah. I mean, the skills for video games are very closely linked to the skills that we teach our colleagues. But I think, understanding how to, again, really just as per my earlier point, like how to kind of build on top of 3D environments if you subscribe to the direction of which things are traveling in terms of how you visualize and simulate things, whether you think the Matrix is going to happen or not, or Ready Player One, all those sorts of things. I don't think there's like harm in playing video games. I think like anything as a form of entertainment, whether it's video games, TV, just being kind of measured in how you manage your children's time on those things. One thing that is interesting though is how my parents always used to tell me, don't sit so close to the TV because you'll get square eyes. And quite often I'll have a VR headset on reviewing something with a screen about that far away from my eyes. So well, I would approve. I think like video games aren't all like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, are they? There's a lot to them, and I think video games, especially, it seems weird to call them video games, something like Fortnite or Roblox or Minecraft, that's how the kids interact. That's how kind of young persons interact nowadays. That's their social network. They go online there, they transact there, they wear different items of virtual fashion there, they trade stories, they build things together, and they fight together. It's just like the real world. It's just manifested inside a computer. So I don't personally have a problem with it, but I'm that a generation that kind of sits in the middle of those two things, I guess, rather than being at one end or the other.
Well, we've got two great questions in the Q&A, but before we get to those, Sandra has since joined us, and I wanted to give her an opportunity to kind of introduce herself and tell us what she's been working on, and then we'll get those other questions. Maybe come back and get Sandra a question before we adjourn.
Hey, Sandra.
Hi, can you hear me? Hi, sorry. I'm so late, but I had a bunch of meetings that were in conflict with this meeting. So for those of you who do not know me, I'm the Deputy Director for the Astrophysics Division at NASA, and I have been working with Robin for a while. And, I really enjoy, motivating the next generation of scientists and engineers. And, I don't know what else you want me to say. Robin, anything else that you would like me to add?
So why do you think this is important? And you've got a personal story that, I think really resonates with everyone.
Yeah, well, I think it's important because we have to give opportunities to kids since they are little to know their potential and know that they can dream big, that they can have interstellar dreams, right? That they can, achieve and become whoever they want to become. When I was 7 years old, I wanted to go to the moon. I never became an astronaut. That's irrelevant. But that dream got me to work in the space areas, and I was not even born in the United States. And so happened I ended up working for NASA. I've been here 35 years, and it's been an amazing career. But when I was 7 years old, all I knew was that I could see the moon, right? And that I knew that it was there, and that I could dream about going to the moon. And maybe I'll never get to go to the moon, but I like to say always that I landed among the stars, right? So, yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, Sandra, thank you. So the first question I'm going to pull from the audience is Anthony Bloom basically points out he's with a global nonprofit and focused on STEM education. His main question is, are there aerospace and space authorities as there are aerospace, what advice would you give to those youth looking for careers in the broader field, but also from an international perspective? I'll open that one up to the floor. And I think, Kevin, Carl, Alejandra, any of you are welcome.
Yeah, I kind of missed the first part of the question for whatever reason you cut off.
Yeah, sure. Overall, it's like, as there are aerospace and space authorities in many countries, what advice would you give to those youth looking for careers in the broader field, but also international work?
Yeah, I mean, I think they need to, first study, apply to yourselves, figure out what is it that you want to do, and go and do it. You cannot just, dream. You have to actually work to make those dreams come true, right? And if you want to work in the space fields, well, you have to become a scientist or an engineer or something related, right? I mean, we hired out lawyers too, and doctors and all of that, but the majority of the people that work here are scientists and engineers. And graduate. I mean, that you want to do and go and do it. And the advice to people in those countries that are in those fields is to go and motivate the next generation of kids. Plant those seeds, and you're going to collect many, many fruits in the future.
Okay, the other question, and actually, can they unmute Kevin, or do we just ask their question for him? Because Hailu Daniel's got a really good point that he's making, and I'll just answer it for you, or I'll ask the question on his behalf. He is a senior aerospace engineer at the University of Maryland, but he's been trying to advocate and convince some of his contemporaries outside of his major that might want to be involved in space. And so for folks completing their degrees that are not traditionally aligned with the business of space or aerospace and are not fully convinced about the benefits of space, what would you tell those individuals so they feel like they belong in this business, in this industry? And just as equally important, what opportunities can we provide as far as internships and opportunities?
I'd like to jump on that just for a second, just from the point of view that this is why Interstellar Dreams exist, to be able to tell the story that we need you. However, I agree that at this point, the narrative or the perception is that it's for a small group of people. And that is why we brought this August group together, to show nobody in this group is an astronaut, right? However, we all have a role. Everything from communication to music to dance to art. We had an artist on earlier. We all play a role. So with that said, we need to work together to make sure that we tell that story. And that is our purpose launching today. Anybody else want to add to that?
We've done our best to try and be astronauts at Framestore. We've tried as much as we can.
I was going to say, Robin, we've got in the future, we're going to put up a list of opportunities. So, come back in the near future and you'll see a list of aerospace internships and they all have different schedules, and they're all from different size companies. So, tune into Interstellar Dreams Space Center, and you'll see that.
So as a fuzzy myself, I'll be the dissenting voice, if you will. And for those of you who are not familiar with the term fuzzy, there's a book called The Fuzzy and the Techie by a gentleman named Scott Hartley. It's a brilliant read. It talks about humanities and science and how they blend together. I'll give you two examples of where we can look outside of aerospace for a future in the business of space. One was represented on the call a little bit earlier. We had Icon on board. Icon 3D is a construction company. They are learning to 3D manufacture facilities to solve some of the greatest problems that are plaguing humanity here on terra firma, as well as interstellarly. And so that's not the traditional aerospace business. Another example is at our retreat that we did last year, we had a young woman who went to school to be an interior designer. And through the course of some development and some input from other members of the business of space, she's now an interior designer for space habitats, for long duration space habitats, because it's been a long time since we first observed that the isolation and monotony of space travel can have a profound impact on the way people think and how they act. And so designing the interior of space habitats is something that's going to be very important. And so I don't want anyone on the call to mistake what we're discussing to go back to traditional space alone, which is categorically aerospace related. There are myriad opportunities that are arising and presenting themselves in the business of space as we move forward. Anyone else is free to add on.
It's great.
Okay.
Great.
The last two comments that we got in the chats, which you all can read, but yes, absolutely. California school system should be included. Every school district in the country has skin in this game, and we should get them involved, because every student will have something that will contribute to the business of space. So that is definitely something we'll look into. And then I think Kevin and Robin, you all probably need to look at Alex's comments, because those are suggestions for Interstellar Dreams and what they could possibly do. All right, so what we'll do at this point is allow each member to kind of provide your closing comments, and then I'll leave the last bit for Robin and Kevin to wrap it up. So we'll go in reverse order. Amy, I think you were the last to speak in the intros, so you get to be the first to speak in the outros.
I think my closing comments would be coming back to something that Che and Carl were talking about near the start, actually, which was about work readiness programs. And I think one thing that we haven't really spoken about much during this conversation, although Alejandra's touched on it a little bit, is the adults in young people's lives. And I know that a lot of our participants on the call right now are adults in young people's lives. And I think we mustn't forget how much influence those adults, whether it's parents, carers, teachers, careers advisors, whoever it might be, can have on young people and what they believe is possible. And I know lots and lots of people in this life who tell stories of terrible career advice that they received from their grandparents or, whatever. And so I think moving forward with Interstellar Dreams, we need to make sure that we're providing information to those adults that is encouraging and that lets them know what an amazing opportunity this presents for their young people and the types of careers that their young people can have in these industries. And we need more role models like Sandra to tell their stories about the really successful and amazing careers that they've had in this sector. So I think that should be a crucial part of anything that we're doing moving forward, is making sure that any young people who participate in internships or learning opportunities have something they can take back to their significant adult and say, look, this is what this opportunity represents for me.
Fantastic. Carl, closing remarks.
Everything that Amy said, because Amy's responsible for my total entire output during my career at Framestore, and I hold her responsible for all the good things and all the bad things. No, I think the young people don't know what they don't know, and it's human nature to be frightened of what you don't know. And I think that's why things like video games and what are you doing wasting your time on video games, that it gets a bad rep. But things have changed I wasn't allowed a video game console when I was a kid, but I was allowed a PC because PCs were for serious computing work and they weren't for playing games. Of course, I was playing games on them and writing games and websites, and that's Halo. I think it's not enough for us as key people, and I think some people would find us inspirational for their own reasons within our businesses. It's kind of our job to look at how we can empower young people to realize that they can achieve these things that people think are unobtainable. I think there's very few people on the planet that would rival the celebrity of footballers and football stars and musicians like astronauts. They're so few and far between. I don't think there's any more kind of inspiring group of individuals out there than spacemen and women, so the ultimate leverage there, I think, to get people excited about these career paths, which, as we've all said here, there's a lot of skills transfer between different industries. So yeah.
Well, my bias inclines me to agree with you that there is nothing more prestigious than going to outer space and being an astronaut, but there are other jobs and other things that we can encourage people to do. Sandra, I know that you joined late and we gave you an opportunity a little bit to talk, and sorry that we didn't have more questions for you, but what would you like to provide in closing?
Well, I'm thank you so much, Charlie. So good to see you too. Like I said before, we need to really be out there motivating our next generation. It is so important, that these kids see themselves in something, that we provide examples, that we provide role models, that they know that there are opportunities out there. And sometimes these kids don't know any better until they see an example or they see somebody talking to them and telling them that they too can achieve their dreams, that they too can do whatever they want to do, that they don't have to repeat the same history that their parents lived, that they can change the world, that they can change, their situation from wherever they are. And we just need to, help them see a different world. Sometimes they are so stuck in their little world and what they see and their homes and the little schools, and they don't see beyond their noses. And I have to say, with my mother who didn't finish high school, some parents think that they cannot help their kids because they don't have an education. But it's important that the parents know too that they can help their kids even though they may not have the educational levels or whatever. They too can help the kids see the world in a different way. And lastly, we have to teach these kids and the parents, that you cannot give up at the first no, that sometimes it takes many times to try to achieve your dreams. And Charlie, I want to put a couple of astronauts in as examples. I know Janice Voss tried 5 times, or Jose Hernandez tried 12, or Massimino tried 7 times, I believe, before their dreams to be astronauts came true. If they have given up at the first no, they would have been able to fly. So you have to keep on trying, and each time you try, you evolve and you improve yourself, and you learn new skills, and that maximizes the time, the next opportunity you might be able to get a yes, right? But even if you never get a yes, you improve yourself so much that you can do some good. I wanted to go to the moon and I never did, but here I am, and I'm happy. So and that's what it's all about.
To Sandra's point, when traditional space was ruling the roost, the no's were prolific. They were always going to come because there were so few finite opportunities. But as the business of space grows, particularly with efforts like Interstellar Dreams, and we create more opportunities and create more jobs, those no's are going to be less and less. But that doesn't change that commitment that you referred to, Sandra, as far as not letting no be the final answer. Matter of fact, you need to make people say multiple no's. Alejandra, how would you like to wrap us up here?
Thank you, Jay. So throughout this entire conversation, I keep hearing the same question come up, right? How do we connect you, the experts, and the people like Carl and Amy who have these amazing opportunities with the children that we want to impact? Well, this probably is redundant, but social media, that's where the kids currently are living right now. And social media is a tool for storytelling and education if we want it to be. I think there's so much power in role models like Sandra telling their story. However, if we do it here in this setup, even as we record it and put it on a website, the impact is limited. When you use social media and you use catchy hashtags and you use what's currently catching the youth's attention, then you bring it to their level. You show them what's cool right now in catchy and entertaining ways. I think that I would love to see this conversation make it into social media in a way that can capture their attention, and it can become, like Robin was saying, something that we can share and spread and make viral.
That is a segue for me to do the one plug that I intend to do before I hand it back over to our hostess and our host. But if you want to get onto the ground floor of something that's heading in the direction of what Alejandra was just talking about, leveraging the technologies as the current digital natives are familiar with, I encourage you all to go to interastra.space. That's INTERASTRA.space, and just sign up for the wait list, and you'll start to get more information through those venues and those media that we're talking about. With that, I want to thank you all for your attention to me as the moderator. I tried my best to keep everybody on task and pull out the answers. But with that, I'm going to hand it over to our host and hostess who made this available and possible. Robin, Kevin, thank you all so much for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you, Jay. You were perfect for this. The key, the way that you integrated various diverse backgrounds and brought it home to the big question is, as Alejandra said, how do we make this relevant for the next generation? That's why I don't see this as an end. It is the launch pad to what we do. Did you get that, Amy? Launch pad? That was real. The launch pad, the launch pad to what we have to do next. We're at next. We're not at now. This was just a massage to talk about it. I do see us meeting offline and talking about what next could look like. Everything from children's books to events to hackathons to, the list is long. And we just need to now march and bring it. But the other thing is, I do have a tendency to feel like I don't want to be going into a community and saying, I want to do this to you. What I think the first step is to listen, go into a community and find out what they need, and then we can adapt. And so we've got all the brain power at our disposal. And I thank the audience for participating. We will be filing back to you to start getting information. Just as an example of, hearing what one of the questions was, how, we have a senior aerospace engineer student at University of Maryland we can talk to. We've got someone from California. What is it like out there for California, the school districts there? It's not a one size fits all, right? And then, do we have a cadre of speakers? How do we do this so it's relevant to the next generation? And they're different audiences, right? Framestore knows this better than anyone. You've got the adult, you have the parent, you've got the employer, you have the employee, you've got the middle schooler. We can't have one size fits all. And so, but we have the capability of doing it. I thank Amy for sharing this multifaceted set of opportunities that we will push out to our group. You have taken everything into an account, for each level of readiness. And it looks like you can fold into another level once you've gotten through a level. So you're a role model for us to think about what to do next. So I thank everybody for coming. Kevin, did you want to close us out?
Yeah, I just want to say that what's the future hold? So we're going to reach out to any aerospace companies that want to talk to us and present next year. Imagine a week, Interstellar Dream Space Week, where we have the Boeings and the Lockheed Martins and the Northrop Grummans talking to us and parents and educators of kids that are yet to go to college. They do a great job right now. They're recruiters that are out there, they're competing for the best talent, but we got to start the conversation and the dialogue earlier. So look forward to that as we curate that. We'll push out any of the other activities that we're going to do between now and then. But I can't thank you enough. This has exceeded my expectations. So thank you all for being here.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you. I will follow up with everyone, our guest, as well as our panelists. Bravo, bravo, and thank you.